entrepreneurship is a journey of self-discovery to help us, to your point, create the opportunities that allow us to find the points of entry into our pain, to release our pain, so we can truly be happy alongside successful, not one or the other.
Hey, welcome back to another session of Rock Your Money, Rock Your Life. I am your host, Rock Thomas. I am your whole life millionaire mentor, where I help people become financially free without giving up their relationships or their health, and live truly an epic life that is reserved for the few that are focused and set that intention. I love to bring on guests that bring a different flavor, texture to this conversation. And today we are joined by Joel Primus, who is a great serial entrepreneur. He's an author and a speaker and an award-winning filmmaker, and currently camping out in the west part of the world in Vancouver on a farm where I grew up on a farm, not the same farm, but I grew up on a farm, and he's there connecting with nature. Joel, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, Rock. It's a real pleasure.
Yes, likewise. So let's, I always like to take people down memory lane a little bit. I believe that, your morning routine is the childhood of your day, but your childhood affects your adulthood as you start to do the work on, the meanings you attached growing up to the things that happened to you. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what that was like.
Well, I grew up not far from here in the farm country, a little town called Abbotsford outside of Vancouver. And much like a lot of what we grow up with, we run away from. And so I ran to the big city, wanted nothing to do with anything but making money and big, tall glass skyscrapers and all that stuff. And, but in all honesty, I say that the roots of where I grew up helped shape me, because I'm not sure if the first company I really started would have happened if I wasn't in the town I was in. There was a lot of the local chamber of commerces, the local businessmen it was just so much more accessible to get the mentorship and advice that a young entrepreneur needed to get his feet on the ground and then, lift off to wherever you're gonna go. So that was all in Abbotsford, but my background was first and foremost running. I was a member of Canada's national team, and I learned everything I learned about discipline and the process and the journey first and foremost, and visualization through running. So
who are some of your heroes in running? Because there's some cool people in that field.
Well, I'm not sure that anyone else's listings agrees with us on that statement of it being a cool field. You can't talk about it without talking about Roger Bannister, because he is the guy that taught us that mindset is everything, when he broke the 4-minute mile, when it was thought impossible, and now high schoolers do it every year. So he's a big inspiration, and obviously Eliud Kipchoge with his sub 2-hour marathon recently, and just his complete and utter just self-belief in that, in selfless belief in that he believes his work as a record breaker is purely to open the door for other people to believe it's possible. Yeah. So those are two guys.
Yeah, and then there's the most recent guy, David Goggins. Have you read his book?
Oh, Goggins is I haven't read his book, but I've listened to a lot of what he's done, and yeah, damn, that guy is pure power, man. Like, just pure passion and power.
So I'm interested in your opinion on this, because you're a runner, and I have a little theory on runners.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, brace yourself. Is just like any addiction, it's usually to change a state away from something else. So, I was a workaholic basically because it kept me busy and it kept me moving toward being enough for my father to be proud of me. I always thought runners must be running away from something, is my theory. And David Goggins had such a painful childhood that running on broken shins and doing these extreme pull-up competitions and stuff like that was less painful than him remembering what he went through, where he didn't feel loved and he didn't feel like he was enough. What are your thoughts around that?
I think it's completely accurate. I think that I mean, insecurity is a powerful fuel. Insecurity fueled by pain, insecurity fueled by trauma, insecurity fueled by those incidents in our lives that create the belief system that we then have to crack open later on in life, right? And I look at it like, in the beginning, it's okay. Insecurity fuels the call to action, the call to adventure. And at some point, it becomes detrimental to our health and our wellness if we don't stop and realign on that path. And for me, it was 100% true. What happened, I mean, I put all my self-worth as a runner. I didn't believe I was worth anything to my parents, and this certainly, my mom and I have talked about it. We've healed it. She vicariously lived her dream to be an athlete and other things through me. And therefore I didn't think there was anything but success. And this led me to a place where at the end of my running career, I was anorexic. I was anorexic because I'd gone to the world championships and seen all the Kenyans and Ethiopians and thought I was fat. I was 117 pounds at 5'8". So that's right.
Whoa.
And injury after injury after injury, to the point where I ran away to Thailand and then traveled the world and then absorbed myself in business until a number of things happened. One of my dear friends passed away. My marriage almost fell apart because I was focused on money. I realized I didn't know my daughter, who was 2, because I was traveling 200 days a year. And I said, this is the thing that's fueling this is clearly unhealthy. And so began the journey of self-discovery, which is now mostly what I teach, is that entrepreneurship is a journey of self-discovery to help us, to your point, create the opportunities that allow us to find the points of entry into our pain, to release our pain, so we can truly be happy alongside successful, not one or the other.
That was awesome. I just wanted to absorb that. That was really freaking awesome and really, really authentic and vulnerable. So thank you. So can we dig into that a little bit? What was at the core of driving you to anorexia, to push yourself to that? What was the wound you were trying to heal?
Well, most of us are trying to heal the mother and father wound without, that's not an accusation on mothers and fathers. They do the best they can. The way I see the world is that we, through our parents and through our peers and through our teachers, absorb a whole bunch of concepts that then form our perception of reality that only we see. Now, there's a lot of similarity between how we all see it, but really it's ours and ours alone. And those concepts generally are negative. And I tend to believe that the negativity is accidental, and in part because a lot of society is telling us what to do, what we should do, accidentally trying to control us, accidentally trying to get us to behave, because it's easier. It's easier for a teacher in a classroom who has 30 kids to just get you to behave, to not let you run your own course, right? And so these things, they absorb into us. And again, for me, my parents were the core of this, but it wasn't just my parents, right? And for a guy who's 117 pounds to look in the mirror and think he's fat, too fat, to be a successful runner, tells you that I am seeing the world through the lens of somebody else's doubt and voice, right? And you don't know it, because until you know to separate the voice from reality, which is nothing to do with that. It's just a thought flowing through the stream of your consciousness that somebody accidentally planted there. Until you can separate those two things, you're stuck with it, right? You're stuck with thinking that that's your thought. And so the big one for me is always unworthiness. Always, always, I am not enough, cannot be enough unless fill in the blank, right?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I get it, and I agree with you. And that, at the end of the day, is all roads lead to that. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but they talk a lot about, it's an assessment where it really sources what is the not enoughness, the strategy Like, so I'm a perfectionist. So my strategy is do things really well so that I can't be criticized. So then I'll be enough. Everybody will, oh yeah, well, Rock showed up. He's on time. He's fit. He's smart. He knows what to say. He's good looking. He's da 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 da. If I can check all those boxes, then I'm not enough. That's my strategy. Other people are likable, right? They will give up what they really want. You're like, hey, do you want to go eat hamburgers? They don't really want to. They go, sure, that's great. So they use a strategy of being likable or being funny or being challenging.
Yeah.
So the Enneagram has 9 different flavors that people choose from based on what they've been exposed to and how they've adapted. For you, you went for the achiever, break the records, make mom proud, et cetera, et cetera. I put my son in a school of golf for 2 years and spent 150 days a year on the golf course with him because I wanted to be an athlete.
Yeah.
And the pressure that I put on him to live my dream, was difficult for him. And God knows how he's processing it today. He's a real estate agent. He does well. But maybe there's a part of him who goes like, Dad spent $200,000 on my education for golf, retired for 2 years, and I didn't fulfill that. Or maybe he doesn't care. I don't know really, right? He seems fully adapted,
Yeah.
but maybe when he's 34, 35, or 45, some of that comes back up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, how much of it have you healed in yourself? All of it? Most of it? Some of it?
A lot of it. But I continue to do the work. I spent $138,000 last year on coaches. I'm going to a men's retreat tomorrow to do breath work. So it's an ongoing peeling of layers. But I will tell you this, is just after the new year this year, I literally started just having this conversation where I said, I don't think I've ever been happier in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not, I don't need to prove it to anybody. It's just a beingness, right?
Mm-hmm. I hear it in your voice. And, the reason I asked that question was because I think that to some degree, your point about 35, 40 is probably right. But to some degree, I think that we can, if we can heal it in ourselves, we can heal it up and down the line. So, because when we heal in ourselves, we stop projecting it onto other parts of the line. And, then they still have to grieve that because you used your son. I'll use it as an example. Hypothetically, if he was used to it and then you stop it because all of a sudden you've healed the line, he has to grieve that relationship that you two had, right? And you two have to redefine it outside of that thing.
Yeah.
And this is why the role of parents and mentors and teachers is so invaluable. Society was built on this idea of mentorship. We go back to the Stoics, we go back to Marcus Aurelius, he had his mentor, we go back to all of it. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, you're done university. Good luck, right? It's like, no. No. And so I commend you for spending money. I remember the first on coaching. I remember the first time I wrote a check to a coach. I was like, oh my God, where do I redeem the ROI in this? Right?
Yeah.
Bet your ass I redeemed the ROI in that. Apologies for swearing, but
You're fine.
Yeah,
I say if you don't pay attention. Free doesn't work for most people. If you're incredibly disciplined and you have access to something, you could probably muster up the focus. But most of the time you've got to pay. And I've gotten actually used to, I went through levels of it, but now I'm very comfortable with paying coaches $500 an hour, $750 an hour, because I know that one distinction, one insight can change the way that I perceive the world. Yeah. And transform my entire beingness.
Yeah, and how are you, because I think that there's certainly a leveling up to knowing how to be incredibly effective with that hour. So from the coach you choose and from your personal ability to get in there and have enough awareness and sensitivity to take the piece that you need and have the $500 an hour be worth it, right? Versus that's the thing I like about coaching versus counseling, right? This idea of counseling has its place 100%, but I'm just going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just going to ask you a question, and it kind of goes on and on and on, right? And it just doesn't feel, it's not about being efficient. It doesn't feel very effective to me, but there is a place where you get there. So out of my own selfishness, what is like, how do you go into knowing you've got like an hour with somebody that I got to get something out of this? I mean, that's a focused session, right?